afternoon or good morning, wherever you are joining us from with us today. I am pleased to be here. My name is Kelly Coash Johnson. I'm the Executive Director for the American Association of School Personnel Administrators. We are thrilled to have Dr. April Willis here, who is the Director of Business Operations for the National Virtual Teacher Association. So that's very exciting. Thank you so much for being here, April. So this webinar today is being sponsored by ESS. As a result, all attendees are welcome to attend this webinar for free, regardless if you are a member or a non-member. So welcome to both. Also, as a result of this being a sponsored webinar, it has not been approved for HRCI SHRM or PHCLE recertification credit. As questions come up during the webinar today, please feel free to type those into your control panel, and we'll do a little bit of a Q&A at the end with Dr. Willis and allow her to answer any questions that you may have. This webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing along with the PowerPoint after the event on the members-only side of the ASPA website. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Willis, and thank you so much. It's an exciting topic.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back. I always love speaking to this group, and today we get to talk about something that is very timely and relevant, and that is how we are going to continue this trajectory of virtual instruction in our public schools. And so part of what that looks like is being able to understand what a candidate pool will look like when it comes to virtual instruction. We now have access to national candidate pools as opposed to just the teachers who live in our zip codes. However, we also have lots of school districts across the country who are continuing to employ the teachers that they've always had, but they're now putting an added layer of responsibility to their job. And they're saying not only do you have to teach in classrooms like you always have, but perhaps you're being transferred into an online-only instructional capacity. Or we're also hearing a lot of our teachers who are now asked to go into hybrid instruction mode, where they have some students in person with them, they have another portion of their students online, and they're supposed to navigate both of those worlds simultaneously. And that's a big ask of teachers, but we know that it's happening across the country. And if we're going to be real, we also know that this topic is not just something that administrators and teachers are having to kind of wrestle with different solutions for, but we know our legislators, our congressmen across the country, they're having these conversations right now, or they just had them over the past couple of weeks. And we also know that some of the impacts that are surrounded those decisions is around funding. So we know there are some states right now that are saying, nope, we're not going to fund your online instruction. If you want to offer it, that's up to you. You guys are going to have to figure out a way to create the funding for it. Other states have been a little bit more understanding and said, we know that this does serve some of our students better. And we also know now that we have the capacity to implement virtual instruction. And when we approach it from that equity lens of we are serving some students who might otherwise fall between the cracks, this is another opportunity for us to offer a customized education so that we can fulfill our commitment to provide a free and appropriate education for every single student across the country. So because of that, this is a very important topic. And what I want to share with you today is one, why is this important? We're going to talk a little bit about stats, and then we're going to go into what is your role in all of this. When it comes time to hiring teachers, what are we looking for so that you know that you're hiring high quality instructional leaders? And then also from the administrative perspective, what can you do to hold those virtual instructors accountable for the high quality education they should be providing? And then finally, we're going to wrap up with a whole bunch of free resources that we have available so that you can ensure that the teachers that you already have employed with your district and the teachers you are going to employ in the future will have the tools that they need to be successful for virtual instruction for your student population. So let's jump right in. First of all, to ground this work, what we know is that most educators were hurled into the virtual classroom with little to no formal training and by no choice of their own. And because of this, we didn't have a common language or standards that were set with educators across the districts, and definitely not across states in the country, that said this is what high quality virtual instruction looks like. We know what good quality instruction looks like in the classroom, but it is different when we're talking about the virtual realm. Everything from building relationships to student discipline and behavior management to being able to meet the needs of the multiple intelligence and the types of learners that you have in your classroom. All of those things change when you're in the virtual environment. We can pull from best practices in the in-person realm and be able to translate it and adjust it, but it looks different, and we should have expectations set around that. And it's all because we know that every child deserves a high quality instruction. So our vision at NBTA is to create a world where virtual teaching is as good as or more effective than in-person instruction. Okay, so let's talk about some of this data. What we know is that 93% of US homes with school-aged children are utilizing some form of virtual instruction during COVID-19. This is 1.2 billion children in 186 countries across the world that have left the traditional classroom for virtual instruction during COVID-19. Now, that's a huge number. I mean, we're talking about all but 7% of kiddos here in the United States. We also know that that number is changing a lot day by day, especially as we start to enter the new school year. We're starting to see a lot more students are going back to in-person instruction, but a significant number, if given the option, have opted to remain in the virtual instruction classroom. So we also know that there's a positive to that. For example, students retain 25 to 60% more material when learning online than when they learn in person. One of the main reasons of that is because of the next stat. It requires 40 to 60% less time to learn than traditional classrooms because they're able to learn at their own pace. This means that when they're listening to a lecture, they have the opportunity to pause it and process what they just heard. They have the opportunity to rewind it, listen to something again. When you are in person, you are only retaining as much as you can listen to and take down in notes. If you have to miss school for a dentist appointment, too bad, you've missed that lecture. Hopefully your friend took good notes and are willing to share with you. So we're starting to see these benefits and best practices, no matter who the student is. It doesn't matter if they're general population or if they're English as a second language or multi-language learner or special education learner. We have so many different types of students, but best practice for all of them is allowing them to learn at their own pace, have continued access to lectures, have continued and open access to all assignments and homework. No more will we hear the excuse of, oh, I left my textbook on the coffee table, or I left my textbook in my locker, so I can't do my homework at home. All of those things should be available to them online now. Their textbooks, always available online. There's homework assignments, always available online. They can submit it online so that dog is no longer eating their homework. So we have lots of benefits for all students when it comes to virtual instruction, not to mention they are able to retain more and learn at a better pace for them. All of this information, by the way, has been cited from the U.S. Census Bureau, the World Economic Forum, and the Associated Press. I want to give you a few more numbers, though. These are not as positive because I know what you're thinking. You're like, well, you made that sound really good, but you've left out all the negative data that we've accumulated around virtual learning this past year. And let's address it. We have some really low numbers here, y'all. We know that districts across the country are reporting 2 to 3 times as many students failing. For example, New Mexico, more than 40% of their middle school and high school students were failing last year. Houston, 42% of students earned an F the first grading period of the 2020 to 2021 school year. St. Paul, Minnesota, nearly 40% of high school students are failing, and that's more than double what they typically see. These numbers are not positive. And what does that tell us? It doesn't tell us that virtual instruction is a failure and we should just give up on the whole thing. It tells us that we're not doing it correctly. There are ways for us to be able to reach these students so that we don't get to say, well, their lack of education and their lack of learning is their fault. It actually falls on us as educators. We have the responsibility, we have the onus, we have the obligation to be able to deliver instruction in a way that continues the growth trajectory and the progress that these students student should be making from year to year. What we know is that students are going to be starting this next school year significantly behind where they typically would have been if they had in-person learning. It doesn't mean in-person learning is the better option. It means we've had more time to perfect that delivery method. We haven't had the time to develop and effectively deliver the virtual delivery instructional method. Now that we know what we're up against, and now that we know what this looks like, we are in a much better spot to be able to turn this into a better situation. So for example, that first year was really a time of experimentation for so many teachers, campuses, and districts across the country. We were experimenting with what tools do we have access to? How much is it going to cost us? What are we going to do for the students who don't have devices or internet? How do we know what we're going to be able to hold them accountable for? Their schedules are all over the place. Maybe they have one device that they're sharing with a group of 3 or 4 siblings. Maybe their parents can't stay home with them and they don't really know how to follow a schedule. There were so many variables involved last year that made it a much more complex situation than simply rolling out virtual instruction. Because simply, we know that virtual instruction is effective. If we look at higher ed, the trajectory that shows the increase in virtual instruction and online curriculum continuously growing exponentially over the past 20 years. And people are doing it because it's effective, it fits their schedules, they're able to continue to pursue their own education while maintaining work-family life balance. Same thing can happen for our elementary students and our middle school students and our high school students. We know these kiddos are busy with sports and extracurricular and band and dance, babysitting, maybe having jobs, helping raise the family, helping paying bills. They are also experiencing some work-life balance tension. And if we're able to help them with that the same way we help adults seeking higher ed, then we should absolutely make that an option for them. I think it's really important, though, to keep in mind, and this is me speaking, not on behalf of MBTA, but my personal opinion is not every model works for every person the same way. We have some people who really do thrive in in-person instruction, and that's fabulous. We should continue to offer it for them. We have other students who are really thriving in the virtual option, and that's why I say we should not discount it just yet. We need to continue to perfect it because we would be doing our students a disservice if we gave them something, allowed them to be successful in it, and then took it away from them. Just like the model, I know there's a lot of people out there who are for or against charter schools, but essentially at the heart of it is we want to provide an option for every single student because the neighborhood traditional school might not be meeting their needs the best that they can, but perhaps another option would. So without getting too deep into a political contest there, we'll just keep it moving with how do we fix this? How do we fix those sad stats that we just saw on that last slide, but still continue to make virtual education an option for students and families who need it? Well, it definitely starts with leadership because we need these strong leaders who know how to hold their teachers accountable for the virtual instruction that their students deserve. We also need strong leaders who know how to provide the teachers with the training and the professional development that they need to maximize virtual instruction. And those strong leaders are also going to know how to hire strong teachers. And we're going to talk about what you're looking for in hiring and what that can potentially, how it looks different when you're hiring for virtual instruction versus in-person instruction. But something to keep in mind too is when we talk about being able to provide teachers the training they need to maximize virtual instruction, that's so important because we want to make sure that teachers feel like they are equipped to do the job that you've given them to do. You want to set them up for success, not set them up for failure. And so that's something that we're going to talk about, how you as a leader or as an HR director, a principal, a superintendent, how can you set your teachers up for success in the virtual instruction environment? So first of all, we need to identify what it is you'd be looking for a high quality instructional teacher for the virtual world. First of all, we want to make sure that they have demonstrated classroom management in a virtual environment. So this means that they have proof or evidence of something that says, hey, I know that this is a concern and this is how I'm going to address it. Whether that be they could have video of them already with classroom doing it and showing you, notice this student over here, this is how I addressed it. They could have a written plan that they share with you, something that shows that they've put some thought into this, that they know classroom management in a virtual environment is not easy, but that they are ready to tackle that obstacle with you. High yield virtual communication strategies. We know that this is another hot topic issue. How do you continue to keep communication open with parents and guardians and with students in the virtual world? Because you don't get to see them every day. You can't high five them in the hallway. You can't stop a parent in the parking lot during pickup or drop off time. So how do you continue to maintain those high yield virtual communication strategies in a way that's effective and continues to support student growth? If they have proof that they've done that or they put thought into that, that's something that you should be looking for in the interview process. Another thing is how to utilize virtual tools and resources effectively, and build those relationships. That kind of goes with the communication one, but being able to utilize those virtual tools and resources, really what I want to hone in on this one is that oftentimes they will be overwhelmed. There are too many tools and resources that we pile on to our teachers all of a sudden, and they don't get to use any one of them to any deep extent. And next thing you know, they're not really an expert at anything. They're barely checking boxes to say, okay, I utilize this one day, I utilize this another day, but they're not maximizing the utilization of that. What we like to see instead is become an expert in a handful of resources that you know how to integrate seamlessly in your instruction, whether it's for games or pop quizzes or group collaboration or communication strategies, whatever that looks like. Become an expert in 3 or 4 of them that serve different purposes. And once you really know those well enough that you could train another teacher to do it, that's when you can try to adopt one more, get to know that one really well, and then try to adopt another one. This prevents teachers from feeling like, wow, you've given me 900 resources and I don't know when I'm supposed to use any of them, how I'm supposed to use them, don't have the patience for this, I don't have the time for it. So that's one approach in making sure that your teachers don't feel like this is biting off more than they can chew. So when you are interviewing for people, ask them to share their top 2 or 3 favorite resources and see how much of an expert they are in any of those. We also want teachers, when you're trying to hire, who have proven to create engaging and meaningful virtual lessons. Super easy to ask for that because you just need to ask for a sample lesson plan or a demo video, something to show that they understand how to teach in the virtual environment and keep it engaging and meaningful. And then finally, those who are committed to evaluating student work virtually without losing rigor or increasing busy work. This is huge for people who were very afraid that once we moved to the virtual environment, we were no longer going to be able to test students because they can cheat on a multiple choice test. They can Google the answer. They can have the big brother take it for them. They can do group work where they're all sitting together taking the test at the same time, and we would have no way of knowing it. Well, this is where some creativity needs to come in, where we're having more project-based learning, maybe we're having more papers. We're still able to integrate tests into the curriculum and pop quizzes, but maybe they look a little bit different than what we're used to seeing. So during the interview process for new hires, asking them to relate what their experience has been in evaluating students without losing rigor, but without increasing busy work. One example of the increasing busy work is I would oftentimes see teachers who believe that now that they're online and students can come and go freely, or they skip more class than they ever did before, they started to really pile on the homework. They were having 20-page papers due every week, or they're having you to do lots of rote memorization type of activities, submitting worksheets online very regularly. That type of work is not increasing rigor. It is increasing frustration, though, because now we have lost the rigor. It feels like busy work. Students don't have time, again, to balance that class along with all of their other classes. So we definitely want to emphasize the idea that you can still evaluate students without monopolizing their time. Okay, so how can you support your staff? So we just talked about when you are going through the hiring process and you're bringing new people on, what you should be looking for. But what about the people you already have? How can we make sure that they feel supported and that they've been given the tools and resources that they need to continue to deliver high quality virtual instruction? Well, the first tool that I'd like to share with you is absolutely free. It's a download, does not require a credit card or anything. It is the Principles of Virtual Teaching, and it's a set of 22 rubrics, and I'm going to go over that in a little bit more detail. We also have a free professional development course that I'll also cover, free articles and content on our social media channels and our website. And finally, NVTA also offers a book called The Virtual Instruction Standards, Optimizing Teaching and Learning. And our mission here, of course, is to inspire virtual teachers to provide excellent instruction. So let's go over some of these free resources. This is an example of the virtual teaching rubrics. Like I said, there are a set of 22 of them. They're available absolutely free. If you go to virtualteacherassociation.org, hit the resources tab at the top, and this will be the first thing you see. It does just ask you for your email, but we will not spam you. And you just type that in and instantly they'll be emailed to you. What you see here is an overview of the rubrics. So there are a total of 5 domains. Within each domain, there are a series of strands, anywhere from 2 strands. For example, here we have 3 strands, 4 strands, I think 6 strands there. And so here you have the opportunity within each one of these domains to see a strand. Each strand is its own standalone rubric. Rubric is based on 4 different criteria ratings, anything from unsatisfactory to basic to proficient, and the highest is accomplished. Of course, the goal here is to reach accomplished across all 22 rubrics. We also know that that's a very lofty goal. So our recommended approach for this is take a look at all of them, look at the ones that you feel very confident in. I'm already doing an outstanding job at this. I probably already rate proficient or accomplished on it. Don't focus as much on those. Identify the ones that you feel like, wow, I think I could work on this. I'm not quite an expert yet. So what are some things that I can do to help get myself there? And on the rubrics, it will list for you critical criteria and examples so that you can see what it would mean to become proficient or accomplished in any one of these areas. So I really hope you guys take advantage of this, because when we talk about aligning standards and creating a common language, this is what that all does for you. This is where it starts. It starts with understanding expectations. When you have a rubric that helps your teachers understand what's expected of them. So hopefully you'll be able to use this not only to help your teachers have a clearer understanding of what high quality virtual instruction looks like, but you can also help them in their growth, help them with evaluations, ask them to self-evaluate, and then ask you to triangulate that and see, are you guys coming up with the same ratings for each teacher? The next thing I want to share with you is a free professional development course. The goal here is to transition to a virtual classroom. We want to make sure that they know how to acquire skills and build that common language. We also want them to continue improving skills and abilities as a virtual instructor or administrator. And so we believe that this is the great place to start. It takes 1 to 3 hours to complete it, and it's a very basic free course. There are some pop quizzes in there. Of course, if you fail them all, it's okay. This is just a learning tool, and it's not going to wind up in certification or anything that really sets you apart from the rest. This is really more a professional growth tool. And if you decide that you like it and that you would like to continue your learning in a professional development course that does result in certification, we offer a certification course as well, and I will go over that shortly. So here are some free articles. For example, this is literally a screenshot from our website. And so on here, you'll see that we try to talk about all things tech. We want to make sure that you feel confident in understanding anything in the ed tech world, whether it's a hot topic, something that's trending in education, something you may not have heard of before, like blockchains and what that has to do with education, the flipped classroom for differentiated instruction in a virtual world. We want to talk about all of these things. We also have a virtual instruction by the numbers with K-12 stats. Infographics are also associated with a few of these, like the 5 reasons adults are choosing online college. So if you're interested in posters, handouts, infographics, some of these articles have them associated with them, and you'll just see them at the bottom of the article. So if you go to virtualteacherassociation.org and click on NVT articles, you'll be able to find all of these right there. So here's a book that we recently published. This is available on Amazon, and basically the purpose of this book is to use it in conjunction with those rubrics that we just talked about. We go into those rubrics, and like I said, the rubrics are literally a set of 22 rubrics, and those 22 rubrics are very conceptual or theoretical in nature. They don't really have the narrative story behind it, and that's what this book does. It gives you those narrative stories. It gives you real world examples. So for example, there would be a rubric in there, let's just say on building relationships in the virtual environment. and it tells you the critical example or the critical criteria. It gives you an example, but you want to know more. Well, this book will say something along the lines of meet Miss Smith, a biology teacher for 7th grade, da 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 da. Here's all the things that her administrator observed from her during a classroom observation, virtually, of course, and this is what made her stand out as an accomplished teacher. So it actually paints pictures for you of this is what it looks like in practice. And so this goes very well with the rubrics. You can use them together if you want to gain clarity on any one of those rubrics. This is available on Amazon for $9.95, available in paperback or a digital ebook. So let's talk about this certification course, because when I mentioned the free professional development one, I had said that if you liked it and you'd like to continue pursuing more educational growth around the idea of virtual instruction, perhaps you'd be interested in a certification. Now, what this certification does is it will, at the end, result in a badge. You can put it on your email and let everybody know that you are a nationally virtually certified instructor. This purpose is to help you master technology and improve your practice, and will also help educators stand out from other educators. So when they're applying for a job, they can say, hey, not only do I tell you that I'm good at this, but I have proof. I'm actually certified to be good at this. What we love about it is that you get to go at your own pace, on your own time, and that you are going to become the teacher that every student deserves. Also, the best part of it is it provides you with 50 professional development or continuing education credits for states who approve at the state level. Now, not every state across the country does approve professional development or continuing education credits at the state level, but for the ones that do, we've already been approved. We haven't been denied by any state we've applied to. And if by chance your state is one that does approve at the state level, but for some reason we haven't made it to them yet, just let me know and we'd be happy to continue to add to that list. And then we also have 3 graduate credit hours. Now, those are optional, which means anybody who signs up for the course has the option to register for the graduate course option, and that will give you 3 graduate credit hours through Adams State University. The difference is Adams State University will require us to provide you about 4 additional readings and assignments, but everything else remains the same. So if you're not interested in the graduate credit, I wouldn't opt into that option just because you will have to do a little bit more work. But all of these are available for the 50 professional development or continuing education credits for those states who we are approved in. It does take around 3 months to complete the certification process, but I'll tell you that you have 9 months to complete it. And I'm also going to show you right here. We are at our website right now. These are the states that we have been approved in. So we've got Alaska, Arkansas, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Maine, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Dakota, and Texas. I can also tell you Michigan is in the works, and we are anticipating Michigan within the next month. The application's been submitted. It's just a matter of time. You can also see up here our educational partners. So these are some of the partners that we have across the country who are supporting the work that we're doing. And so you can know that Proximity Learning and Power School, Teaching, Learning, Leading K-12, 3 of the region service centers across Texas, the Continuing Education Institute of Illinois, Agile for Ed. These are all partners that are championing the virtual instruction equity, and they advocate for high quality virtual education. So going back to our presentation though, selecting the best of the best. So here are some things you can do. Let's say you are at the point where you're ready to bring some new people in. You want to ask, of course, for references. That's the one thing essentially that stays the same, whether you are looking at new hires for the virtual classroom or face-to-face in person. So you want to get those references, work samples, technical proficiency, student expectations, that they know how to set them and convey them, that they have content mastery. We don't want to get so lost in the world of it's really important that you understand how to work in a tech environment that you forget to ask them the content mastery questions, because we absolutely want those who are masters in their subject areas teaching our students. We also would ask for mock video lessons and an e-portfolio. Now, through the certification program that I just shared with you, it results in an e-portfolio, which means there are no tests, there are no quizzes, because we know that that's not the best way to evaluate how much somebody knows and can apply. So instead, every single one of the assignments and the discussion boards that are part of the certification course goes into an e-portfolio that teachers can then use to stand apart from the rest when they are going to a job interview. They can take the e-portfolio with them and share it with an administrator. They can also share it with their current administration when helping to advocate for raises or promotions by saying, look at all the things I can do, because everything in that course can be immediately applied to the virtual classroom. And it's really just a demonstration of their expertise in virtual instruction. And then, of course, we want to ask for certifications. So state certifications, specialty certifications, like for special ed, gifted and talented, English language learners. And then if you can also ask for that virtual teacher certification, that will absolutely help some teachers stand out. So that wraps up our presentation. You can find us at virtualteacherassociation.org. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn if you'd like to connect with us there and stay up to date with all of the trends in tech ed and anything that you guys would like to ask me. I am now available for your question at the end. And then also if you're like, well, not really ready to ask a question in front of everybody right now, if you do go to virtualteacherassociation.org, there's a contact us button the footer of every page, and that goes directly to my email inbox, and I will happily answer your questions there too. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and Kelly, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, thank you so much, Dr. Willis, and that was a very good presentation, and I loved your stats because it makes us all feel a little bit better, doesn't it?
Yes.
So, now would be a great time if any of you have any questions for Dr. Willis. She is happy to answer them. I don't have any as of yet, but we can absolutely allow our folks to put some in. Looks like we've got one. So can you identify a few school districts that might be models for us to look at right now?
Sure. So proximity learning, that was listed on there as one of our partners. They are actually a 100% remote virtual instructional organization. And what they do is they will live stream teachers into public school districts across the country. And they have created their own initiatives through their partnership with us to try to have 80% of all of their teaching staff certified through NVTA. So what they're doing is actually, it's a lofty goal. It's incredible that they're doing it. And we are already starting to see some of the benefits they've shared with us around being more marketable to school districts, bringing them in because they can say their teachers are virtually certified. So I think that that's probably primarily where I would go. Other than that, I've got a few districts across the state with teachers who are currently enrolled in the program. They've only really enrolled a handful of teachers though. And so typically anywhere from 3 to 10 will be enrolled at any one time from a district. And so unfortunately, I wouldn't feel comfortable just saying that that would be the model because we would need more than 3 to 10 teachers across a district to actually be a solid model for this. But I'd be happy to talk to you individually and answer some questions or even provide some references if that's something that you'd be interested in following up on.
Okay, so great. So are you potentially recommending that they go to the Proximity website and look at the client schools that they are working with now?
That could be one potential approach, yes.
Okay, super duper. All right, what other questions do we have, folks? I'll give everybody just one more quick minute. And again, this webinar is recorded, and we will have it under the members only side of our website for viewing at any time. All right, so that was our only question, Dr. Willis.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today. And everyone have a safe and happy 4th of July.